We are live on the 10 here on the Bet River Sports Network, your favorite Big Ten betting show. I'm your host, Greg Waddell, joined by the wonderful Doug Kezirian. We've got a great show for you today. A bunch of high-level basketball games being played in this conference. Before we get into it all, I want to tell you about our College Sports Rush bonus bet promotion that is ongoing. Get a $10 bonus bet to use on college hoops with this special giveaway from Bet Rivers and College Sports Rush. Go to your Bet Rivers app, enter the bonus code CSR22 to get a $10 bonus bet to use on any college basketball game. That code again is CSR22. Our offer ends on February 15th. You must be 21, eligible players only. And if you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, we've got 5 games to look ahead to starting tonight on Wednesday night. We also want to take a quick pulse check with the futures. But even before we do that, Doug, I haven't talked to you since before the Super Bowl. You were out covering that game. You made it home safe, it looks like. And then last night, Big Ten fans were treated to one of the wilder nights in this conference's recent history. Illinois goes down at home to Wisconsin. Purdue survives on the road in Lincoln. Any quick reaction or thoughts?
So obviously a wild night, Greg. A couple things. I give Nebraska a lot of credit for having alligator blood and continuing to come back and never say die. And obviously they're a real team by now. We know that. Earlier in the year, we weren't really sure. But give Purdue credit too. Usually when you blow leads, you don't really respond when it goes to overtime. So for them to do that a couple times, once in overtime was also impressive. And Wisconsin, your guess is as good as mine. What kind of performance we're gonna get out of these teams. Two incredible wins on the season at Illinois, and then at Chrysler, and then they're also capable of losing to anyone. So that's sports in general, but they are to the nth degree. So a little bit of everything with whiskey.
Yeah, those 3-point volume teams both ways are just hard to predict. You can never know which version is going to show up depending on the shot making. But they were fortunate a little bit given Illinois, no Stojakovic, Boswell still out with that month-long missing injury that we've seen. They need those guys back sooner rather than later. Otherwise, that perimeter defense looks a lot different for Illinois. Purdue, Nebraska was just a high-level basketball game with drama, with slipping in the final minute. And Purdue stays alive, still 2 games back in that 4-way tie for second place behind the Wolverines. Let's pulse check some Big Ten Final Four futures here before we go into our 5 games in the middle of the week. Michigan is the favorite as expected. That is reflected in the odds here, minus 118 to make a Final Four. Illinois off a 2-game losing streak now, a little different than this looked earlier in the week, plus 275 to make a Final Four. You could get Purdue and Nebraska 4-1, the Michigan State Spartans 9-1, or Ben McCollum's Iowa Hawkeyes 20-1, lurking further down the list. Any of these catch your eye, Doug?
So much of it is matchup based, and we know that. And I don't want to be a stick in the mud, but it's really hard, especially with Nebraska, right? When we see how much they can get out rebounded, not just Purdue yesterday, but other games. Illinois comes to mind when they lost at home. I think it has. You just kind of have to look at the bracket in order to truly find value in this regard. I'd say Michigan being a minus money favorite. They're basically at this point they're guaranteed almost to get a 1 seed unless the wheels really fall off. So minus money for a team to win a region, not unheard of, but no reason to grab value. You mentioned Illinois' line changing, Purdue kind of making that run. I know you talked about it a couple weeks ago, Greg. Maybe I thought we'd get a little more regular season action of them spiraling before we could maybe find some value. Yeah, nothing jumps out. I mean, look, if Sparty didn't have Tom Izzo, I wouldn't even consider them. But the fact that they have Izzo is the only reason I would look at 9-1. But I do think Iowa might be hitting their groove. We talked about Ben McCollum sort of adjusting to Big Ten life back half of the season. That'd be a team that would interest me for sure. And the question is, and I just did it with Michigan, but you have to compare it to what seed they're going to get. Maybe look at bracketology. Typically, what kind of futures those seeds have to win a region. All those things come to mind, but it's going to be tough because we've talked about it. The top couple teams, including Michigan, and then also really the top 10, there's a big drop off, I think, from the top 10 to the rest of college basketball. I mean, look, we're not going to have all chalk, but every year is different. So I don't know if I see anything for Final Four futures that is worth a play right now.
Yeah, there's 4 teams that I think in this league can make a Final Four. It's the 4 most likely according to the odds, and I just don't think any numbers currently as we sit today are overly favorable. Honestly, Illinois coming off 2 losses, over 2-1. It feels like maybe the right time if you're really convinced in Illinois. But to me, that feels like fair value. If anything, I'm not itching to put that on my card. I wouldn't touch Michigan at a minus number. However, I think they're highly likely to make a Final Four, and it's probably fair value. Purdue and Nebraska 4-1. You can make arguments for both teams. Purdue's weaknesses have been on full display. That's a defense you can pick apart, put the bigs in ball screens. Nebraska, on the flip side, it's a great story. I think they're going to be incredibly difficult to prepare for in a second game of a 2-game and 3-day stretch, which you see in the NCAA tournament. But it's just different. You got to win 4 games, not just get through the first weekend, get to the second weekend for Nebraska. I probably wouldn't touch them 4-1. I'm not an Iowa believer, but 20-1 feels like the value play. If you are a Ben McCollum believer, if you believe that Bennett Sturtz is a guy, guards win in March, and he could power you there, he's off some incredible performances. I think he's averaging around 30 points a game in their last 4. This is a guy in Ben McCollum who has just won everywhere he's gone. We'll see if that applies to the NCAA tournament when he gets there. It's not for me. I question their athleticism, but a lot of smart people I know do have Iowa Final Four futures, and I think 20-1 is probably the only valuable play on the board today. Okay, 5 games in the middle of the week that we want to get to next. Let's start first with Michigan in Evanston at Northwestern on Wednesday night. The Wolverines have sat on their couches and picked up a game in the standings on both Illinois and Nebraska in the last 24 hours. They now hold a 2-game lead atop everyone else in this league for the Big Ten championship, favored by 15.5 here against a Northwestern team that hasn't had much going their way in recent weeks. Totals 153.5. What do you like, Doug?
So I think we're going to see some blowouts in the Big Ten today. I do think there's a chance the Wolverines play with their food. Let's not forget, this is a team that really struggled on the road. Not too long ago, they were a team that had failed to cover 7 straight games overall, and the overtime was really the bugaboo. I mean, they only beat Penn State and Happy Valley by 2. Um, they were down at halftime to Oregon. Now, there's peaks and valleys to a season. We've talked about it, and they kind of are hitting their groove. They destroyed Penn State last week at home. Went to Columbus, took care of business. Won. They were only about the line went up, so it was like 10.5 was the closing number, I believe. Up 10.5. Nicely done on Super Bowl Sunday. So I think they blow them out here. I'm not going to give Northwestern too much credit for the close loss on Sunday to Iowa. Super Bowl Sunday is kind of weird. It's one of those getaway day kind of things. That vibe. We see some wonky scores sometimes. So for me, I think the Wolverines are the play. Frankly, I'd probably be more excited about playing them if I didn't like so many of the other games on today's Big Ten slate.
Well, I'm excited for your thoughts on the next
Yeah,
one.
television tease there.
Yeah, Doug, you jumped the gun a little bit though, because while you said you would be more excited, I'll tell you right now, I'm most excited about this game. And yes, I am a Michigan fan. I might be speaking from the heart on this when you see the block M on my quarter zip today. I think this is one of the most mispriced lines of the year. I think this is a Michigan smash spot, an alt line situation for the Wolverines. I think they win this game going away by 30 plus. This Michigan team, since that emotional victory against East Lansing, has turned a corner. I mean, we saw a vulnerable stretch in January where they were not covering the spread by 10 points basically every game. I think they got their juice back and maybe freed up a little bit emotionally from the gravity of this all eyes on us, best team in the country. When you go to the Breslin and you kind of quench some demons from the year before, now all of a sudden it's okay. We're just on top of the league by a couple games. Go out, have fun. It is what it is. There's not game pressure right now. I think that has manifested itself into 3 consecutive brilliant performances from the Wolverines, including, a game where you score 110 against Penn State, who is kind of that sleepy Northwestern team. Like, are you going to no-show these guys? I just think they're back to that level we saw at the Players era. And then you look at Northwestern, one of the more overvalued teams analytically that you can find in the sport. They sit here today, 68th on KenPom, despite being 2-11 in conference play. I get it. The metrics say they're a middle of the pack team in this league, not the worst. That's why this is a 15-point spread, not a 25-point spread. However, I would point out the personnel on this team has changed. Chris Collins has gone away from Arrington Page, who's a legitimate NBA prospect for God knows what reason. He's played 20 minutes once in their last 8 games. He's turned to freshmen that, quite frankly, are not Big Ten basketball players. And I don't know if it's because he's looking at the conference standings and trying to build up a young core for the future or what. You don't get points for tanking in this league, but he is playing guys that were not in the rotation for the first 2 months of the season. The team that grades out top 70 nationally is the personnel that was playing in those games. Since these lineup changes in their last 5 games, Northwestern is 133rd nationally per Torvik. I think that's what this new group is. It is worse players, and it is a team that should not be 15 points worse than Michigan with those freshmen. It should be closer to 20-25. I'm all over the Wolverines here. Let's turn next to USC against Ohio State in a battle between Big Ten bubble teams. Maybe no game on the card more important to both sides than this one. Buckeyes favored by 7.5 at home. Totals 150.5. What do you like?
I think the Buckeyes pull away here. USC's been a tough team to figure out. They've cost me some money at times. They've won me some money in that I faded them on Sunday. Got the 3.5 points with Penn State at home. The old 9 a.m. body clock game for the Trojans. But I thought they played well in the second half, down double digits. Really nice response. Arenas with the game winner. They do some things I like. They leave a lot to be desired as well. I think the Buckeyes, I don't know if outclass is the right word, but just a lot more reliable, I think, in this situation. And it's a tough ask with the road travel and everything. And I also think the cold weather, even though I know games are played indoors, I do think the travel kind of weighs on these Southern California kids. It's a fairly big number with the matchup, but I think they eke it out and cover this spread. I think Ohio State wins by double digits.
I certainly think they should. This USC team is the most confusing team for me to handicap in the league. So many different revolving doors of personnel, stars in and out of the lineup. No Baker Mazara now, and Elijah Arenas has really stepped in. He had the game winner for USC over the weekend. They survived that Penn State game. I just have to stay away because I don't know what version of USC shows up. And I've talked about my skepticism of Jake Diebler in general. Whenever there's pressure on a Diebler team, that's typically a spot I look to fade. I think there is some pressure here. This is certainly a must-win game if you're Ohio State and you want to be firmly in the NCAA tournament field. On the flip side, it's an opportunity game for USC. Maybe they are freed up by that and kind of going to chase something. But in terms of basketball analysis here, I don't see much resistance for the Ohio State offense here. I think they've got the personnel. Bruce Thornton should be able to get downhill at will against the USC guards. 6:30 tip is a weird tip-off time, too, for a West Coast team in Columbus. So for that reason, it's a total stay away from me. Let's go next to the Iowa Hawkeyes on the road at Maryland. Ben McCollum's team getting some respect from the odds makers. 10.5-point favorites. Buzz Williams was at the podium for his first media availability in 2 months of this dreadful Maryland season. Low total here at 139.5, but that's Ben McCollum basketball. What do you like, Doug?
Well, give Maryland credit. That was a nice win, all things considered. For as bad of a team as they've been, for them to respond and beat Minnesota, I think they deserve some credit. But I don't think it's all of a sudden a turning point of the season and they figured some stuff out. I still think their defense is atrocious. I think the Hawkeyes are going to take advantage. Iowa beat them by 19 at home. I just think it's a really tough matchup for a Maryland defense that's non-existent most of the time. So I think the Hawkeyes can kind of name their score here. Terps may have a little bounce in their step. Maybe I don't want to lay first half with the Hawks here. But look, we saw an upset yesterday as a double-digit team on the road. Here you have a double-digit home dog. I don't think much of this Maryland team. Again, I don't think it's going to springboard their season. They had lost 4 straight against the spread. They were getting drilled routinely. I think Iowa is going to have an open gym shooting sort of experience here.
Yeah, that Maryland defense may be the worst unit in the entire league. Good offenses with shooting and skilled point guards running the show have typically eaten this up. That certainly qualifies for Iowa. It's a lean for me. It's not an official play, largely due to spot. I look at Iowa here. They host Purdue on Saturday. They've already played the Boilermakers once, but that's essentially an elimination game at this point for the league and one that's going to get a lot of attention. They also have Nebraska on Tuesday after that. They're sort of, this is one final game before the season defining stretch. And I think that can bite teams occasionally. I have a lot of respect for McCollum to get over that and make sure this is a focus group, especially given they didn't have a great performance against Northwestern last time out. One thing I would just note that is in favor of the Hawkeyes as a play here, they've been road warriors. 3 straight games on the road have been 3 of their best performances. They beat Indiana by 17, Oregon by 18, Washington by 10. In that same 6-game winning streak, wins at home, all by single digits against Rutgers, Northwestern, and USC. This team has been better in road games than they've been at Carver Hawkeye for some reason. I don't know why that is, but it would certainly be a point toward the idea that they can roll against a bad defense in this game. One more game here for the Wednesday night tips. This is Washington favored by 12.5 at home against Penn State. Totals 154.5. What do you like?
I like the home team laying the lumber here. I just think it's one of those beatdowns. Look, this Washington team's flying a little bit under the radar. They're 8-2 ATS in their last 10, 5-1 in their last 6. I think they're putting it together as they get healthy. They do some things really nicely, particularly protect the paint and score in the paint, and they have a lot of bigs. And I just think Penn State is really just not all there. They play really poor, really dumb basketball most of the game. I've just been pretty unimpressed. So I think you're going to get the Huskies off back-to-back outright losses coming in, and I just think they're going to be all business and lunch pail, so to speak, and really kind of a get-right spot. Penn State, demoralizing loss on Sunday. Now they got to go all the way across the country, 10 p.m. body clock game, and they might shoot the lights out. If they do, fine. But ultimately, Washington should just kind of name their score, win by 17-25 here.
We've talked about how backloaded the Big Ten contender schedules are. Reasons to believe that there is at least one team in this league that has the opposite of that. It's the Washington Huskies. Let's look ahead quickly. They have Penn State and Minnesota at home. They have one more eastbound road trip. They go at Maryland and Rutgers, the 2 easiest places to play in the league. Then Wisconsin and USC at home, and at Oregon to conclude the season. This team's 8-2 in their last 10 against the spread, as you mentioned. They've been playing better basketball than anyone realizes, just losing close games to teams like Iowa, Illinois, UCLA, Michigan. They are due for some schedule positive regression here. I do agree with you. I think it starts tonight. If you could get a market out there on Washington to make the NCAA tournament, I actually like that. And it sounds crazy about a 12-12 team. But man, I think there's a world where this team goes either 6-1 or 7-0 down the stretch. And we're looking at this resume completely differently than we are. It has to start with a statement win tonight, but Steinbach should feast inside. I think you get your cover that you're after, Doug. One more game here. This one on Friday. We're going to do an early look ahead of this. We will have another show on Friday as well this week where we may have firmed up lines and some more detailed thoughts. But for now, this is a big one. Michigan State at Wisconsin. Michigan State, we project to be favored by 4.5 here on the road with a projected total at 146.5. A lot of emotional swings for both of these teams coming off of their recent performances. What's your early handicap here?
I kind of like betting Wisconsin plus points when they're off losses. I think, they respond. I thought they had the right edge to them off the questionable officiating at Indiana. So they had a nice win, obviously last night. I'm not sold that all of a sudden Sparty's turned the corner. I thought Izzo knew how to push the right buttons. Obviously, great work in his regard, but I think it's whiskey or pass for me. And I think too much shooting. You touched on it with the 3-point shooting, the variable. I would have to take the home dog here plus the points, but it is sort of a variance game. I probably would just take whiskey on the money line, to be honest. I mean, I think with the variance, you lean into it.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. I think the value play, if this is what the line comes out, I would just back the home dog to win outright and hope you get the nuclear shooting night from Wisconsin continuing. There is a level of giant slayer to this team with those road wins at Michigan and at Illinois. I got to imagine they view Tom Izzo's Michigan State team that is still in contention as another one that they can pull the Grim Reaper meme out to. Now, again, volatile to bet Wisconsin. Any given game, they're liable to shoot 19% from three and lose by 30. But I think with a Kohl Center crowd behind them, some 3-point imbalance here as well. Michigan State doesn't shoot a lot of threes. It's sort of a math game when they play teams that do. They've really got to execute defensively and be able to overcome all of the tough twos they take relative to what Wisconsin does. So we'll see what the line comes out at. Like we said, projections, but I feel likely to be on Wisconsin, even though Michigan State's had a few more days to prep for this game on Friday night. Okay, let's conclude the show with our midweek best bets. What do you like most for the middle of the week?
I'm torn between a couple, but not really. I'll lay it with Washington. That's been my play that I liked all along. You got me kind of warming up to Iowa and even coming around on the Michigan play. But ultimately, I think this is a Washington team that needs to put it all together. Now, obviously, there's a big difference between keeping it close, catching a lot of points against a good team, and then covering 12 and a half against a Penn State team that may kind of play loose and nothing to lose. But man, this team got drilled by 20 something against Maryland on the road. They're 0-6 in conference play, ATS 2-4. So I think I just have to lay it and hope the Huskies come to play and no funny business, stupid foul trouble, or start out 1 of 9 from 3 or something like that. I just think 40 minutes and Washington can win this by 20.
I'll take the credit for maybe some added push toward a couple directions for you, but Doug, it's you who's done the same for me. I'm adding both Iowa and Washington to my card with a quickness that I didn't expect here. I'm going to lock in my Michigan pick here. I just think there's a huge discrepancy between what Northwestern is analytically versus what they are on the court in this recent month with the new personnel. Sometimes you can find huge changes that sites like KenPom and we know, like a Bart Torvik, those do matter to the odds makers when they're setting lines. You can find huge gaps between what a team truly is playing like and what they were in November because those sites don't account for personnel. It's supposed to be baked in a little more. I thought this line would come out around 17.5 or 18. I'm going to be taking Michigan on the alt line, but give me minus 15.5 for the Wolverines as my best bet of the night. Thank you, Doug. Thank you to our team behind the scenes. Thank you to all of you for watching the 10 on the Bet River Sports Network. We are part of College Sports Rush. We've got a bunch of great content for you on the College Sports Rush channel, including Sports Better's Paradise with Jimmy Ott, which you can watch every single week. We will be back on the 10 on Friday to give you a full weekend preview. In the meantime, good luck on your bets. Bet responsibly. We'll see you on Friday.